Space is silent. It has no sound. No warning. No mercy. Far above the Earth, where the blue planet looks small and fragile, 3 men were traveling inside a metal ship. The ship was not large. It was tight, cold, and full of wires, switches, and blinking lights. It was called Apollo 13. This mission was not famous. This mission was not special. At least, not in the beginning. NASA had already landed humans on the moon before. People around the world had watched it on television. They had clapped. They had celebrated. Now, the moon missions felt normal. Almost boring. Apollo 13 was supposed to be another routine flight. No one knew it would become a fight for survival. Normal mission. The 3 astronauts were calm. They were trained for this moment. Years of training. Thousands of hours inside simulators. They knew their jobs. They trusted the spacecraft. They trusted NASA. Most of all, they trusted each other. Inside the cabin, everything looked normal. The oxygen tanks were full. The power systems were stable. The ship was moving smoothly through space. Outside the small windows, Earth slowly disappeared into darkness. From Earth, millions of people were not watching. There was no excitement. News channels did not talk much about Apollo 13. For many people, it was just another mission. But space does not care if humans are bored. Space does not forgive mistakes. The distance grows hour by hour. The spacecraft moved farther away from Earth. The astronauts followed their daily routine. They checked instruments. They spoke to mission control. They ate small meals. They floated gently in zero gravity. They laughed. They joked. They felt safe. Mission control in Houston also felt confident. The numbers on their screens looked fine. Every signal coming from the spacecraft said the same thing. All systems are normal. No one could see the danger hiding inside the ship. No one could hear it. A small task late into the mission. Mission control asked the crew to perform a simple task. It was routine. Something done many times before. Nothing risky. Nothing dangerous. They were asked to stir the oxygen tanks. Just a small action. Just a switch. Inside the spacecraft, one astronaut reached out and flipped the switch. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the sound that changed everything, a loud bang, shook the spacecraft. Not like a gentle vibration. Not like a small shake. It was violent. The ship trembled. Warning lights flashed. Alarms started to scream inside the cabin. The astronauts froze. They looked at each other. What was that? The ship was suddenly alive with noise. Instruments went crazy. Needles moved fast. Lights turned red. Outside, something invisible had happened. Inside, confusion took over. Fear enters the cabin. One astronaut floated toward the control panel. He checked the oxygen levels. They were dropping. Fast. Another astronaut checked the power systems. They were failing. The spacecraft was losing life. Oxygen was leaking into space. Electricity was dying. The ship that once felt safe now felt like a coffin. Their training kicked in. But fear was there. Real fear. The kind no simulator can truly teach. They were over 200,000 miles away from Earth. Help was impossible. The call to Earth inside mission control. Voices filled the room. Engineers noticed strange data on their screens. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Then the radio came alive. A calm voice, trying to hide panic, spoke from space. Houston, we have a problem. Those words were simple, but their meaning was terrifying. Mission control went silent. Every eye turned to the screens. Every breath stopped. A desperate call begins. The astronauts explained what they were seeing. Oxygen tank pressure falling. Fuel cells shutting down. Power disappearing. Mission control listened Carefully. No one spoke loudly. No one joked. This was no drill. The moon mission was over. Now, the only mission was survival. Deadly Truth engineers in Houston started to understand the situation. An oxygen tank had exploded. The blast damaged the spacecraft. The ship was bleeding air into space. Without oxygen, the crew would die. Without power, the ship would freeze. Without solutions, this mission would end in tragedy. Time was running out. Silence and distance back in the spacecraft. The astronauts felt the cold slowly growing. Their breath looked thin. The lights were dim. Earth felt very far away. They waited for instructions. They waited for hope. Mission control worked fast. But the truth was cruel. No rescue ship could reach them. No quick fix existed. They were alone. A new reality mission. Control made a hard decision. The main spacecraft could no longer support life. The astronauts had to move into a smaller module. A module never designed to keep 3 men alive for long. It was meant for the moon. Not for survival. There was no other choice. End of part 1. Cliffhanger. As the astronauts powered down their dying ship, one thought filled their minds. Will we ever return to Earth? The radio crackled. The silence of space closed in. And far away, Earth kept spinning, unaware of how close 3 lives were to being lost forever. Space did not react. After the explosion, space stayed calm, cold, silent. Inside the spacecraft, nothing felt calm anymore. The astronauts floated quietly, surrounded by blinking lights and warning alarms. The ship that once carried dreams now carried fear. They did not scream. They did not panic. They had training. But even training cannot erase one truth. They were running out of time. The dying ship, the main spacecraft, was losing power fast. Every system was connected. When one failed, others followed. Oxygen was escaping into the dark. Electricity was fading. Heat was disappearing. The temperature inside the cabin dropped. Slowly, breathing became harder. The astronauts wore extra clothing, but space cold is not like Earth cold. It does not knock. It enters quietly. Mission control gave clear orders. Turn off everything you do not need. Lights went off. Screens went dark. The ship became a shadow. Moving into the unknown, there was only one place left. The lunar module. A small, fragile spacecraft. Designed for 2 men. Designed for the moon. Not for 3 men. Not for days. Not for survival. But it was their only shelter. One by one, they moved inside. The moment they closed the hatch, the reality became clear. This was now their lifeboat. A cold new home inside the lunar module. Space felt closer. The walls were thin. The systems were limited. Resources were dangerously low. Water was rationed. Food was limited. Sleep became difficult. They could not waste anything. Not oxygen. Not power. Not hope. Outside the window, the moon slowly grew larger. But no one celebrated. They were not going to land. The silent enemy carbon dioxide began to rise, invisible, deadly. The filters inside the lunar module were not designed for 3 people. The air slowly became poisonous. The astronauts felt tired. Their heads hurt. Their thinking slowed. Mission control knew the danger. If nothing changed, the crew would suffocate. Earth's race against time. Back on Earth, Houston was alive with tension. Engineers filled every room. Papers covered tables. Voices overlapped. They had to solve a problem never solved before. They had to clean air, using only what was already inside the spacecraft. No new tools. No second chances. Time was their enemy. A strange solution. Engineers looked at boxes, tape, plastic, and hoses. Simple items. Useless alone, life-saving together. They built a solution on Earth and sent instructions to space, step by step. Slow and careful, inside the lunar module. The astronauts followed every word. Their hands were cold. Their energy was low. But they worked, because failure meant death. Breathing again after hours of effort. The system was ready. The filter was connected. The air slowly changed. Carbon dioxide levels stopped rising. The astronauts breathed deeply. For the first time since the explosion. They felt relief. But the danger was not over. Not even close. Lost in space, the spacecraft was no longer heading toward the moon. It was falling around it. A long loop through space. They needed to use gravity to return home. But the ship had little power. Little fuel. One wrong move could send them drifting forever. Darkness and doubt. The nights were long. Sleep was short. Cold wrapped around their bodies. Sometimes no one spoke. Sometimes they thought of Earth. Of family. Of voices. Of warmth. The radio stayed quiet for moments that felt endless. Silence in space is heavy. End of Part 2. Cliffhanger. As the spacecraft moved behind the moon, radio contact was lost. No signal. No voices. No updates. On Earth, mission control waited. In space, 3 men floated in darkness. No one knew if they were still alive. Space does not chase. It waits. As the spacecraft moved away from the moon, it looked small and weak against the endless dark. No engine sound. No bright lights. Just a silent object floating between life and nothing. Inside, 3 men were alive. Barely. The long curve around the moon. Spacecraft was now following a dangerous path. Not straight. Not fast. It was curving slowly around the moon, using gravity like a rope. If this move failed, the ship would never come back to Earth. The astronauts could not see the future. They could only trust math. And hope. Outside the window, the moon passed quietly. Beautiful. Cold. Uncaring. They were close to it, but it felt like another planet of death. No room for error. Mission control sent instructions carefully. Every word mattered. There was no computer to fix mistakes. Everything was manual. Angles, timing, and small corrections decided life or death. Inside the lunar module, the astronauts prepared to fire the engine. This engine was not designed for this job. If it failed, there would be no second chance. Hands shook slightly. Breathing slowed. The countdown began. Earning. Blind. There was one big problem. They could not use the navigation system. It was dead. No guidance. No stars. No digital help. They had to aim the spacecraft using only the Earth as a guide. Small blue dot far away. They lined it up in the window. If they were wrong by even a little, space would keep them forever. The engine fired. The ship shook. Everyone stayed silent. Seconds felt like hours. A quiet success. The engine stopped. For a moment, no one spoke. Mission control checked numbers. Then, a calm voice came through the radio. Trajectory. Looks good. They were still alive, but survival was still far away. The cold gets worse. The power was almost gone. Heaters were off. Water froze inside containers. Condensation covered the walls like ice. The astronauts' fingers felt numb. They spoke less, moved slower. Their bodies were tired. Their minds were fighting. Fog. Cold makes thinking hard. Space knows. This. Hunger and weakness. Food was limited. They ate small bites. Sometimes nothing. Water was rationed so tightly that lips cracked. Urine became dark. Signs of dehydration. Mission control knew this was dangerous, but there was no choice. Save water now, or die later. Fear without words. Sometimes one astronaut stared at Earth through the window. Sometimes Another closed his eyes and imagined warmth. No one said the word death, but it was there, floating with them. Listening. Waiting. A. Dangerous Discovery Mission Control found a new problem. The heat shield might be damaged if it was broken. Re-entry would burn the spacecraft and everyone inside. There was no way to check. No. Camera. No test. They would only know at the end. The weight of not knowing. This was the hardest part. Not pain. Not hunger. Not cold. Uncertainty. Knowing that everything could be perfect and still fail. The astronauts stayed calm on the radio. But inside, questions grew. Will the heat shield hold? Will we burn? Will Earth ever feel real again? End of Part 3. Cliffhanger. The spacecraft continued its silent journey. Earth slowly grew bigger, but danger grew with it, because coming home was the most dangerous part of all. When air turns against you, the most dangerous enemy had no face. No sound. No shape. No warning. It was already inside the spacecraft, breathing the problem inside the lunar module. The air felt normal. At first. No smell. No smoke. No alarms. The astronauts breathed slowly, trying to save oxygen. Every breath mattered now, but something unseen was changing. Carbon dioxide was rising, a gas humans breathe out, a gas that kills silently. Small signs at first. The signs were easy to ignore. One astronaut felt tired. Another felt a light headache. Thinking became slower. They blamed hunger. They blamed cold. They blamed stress. But the truth was worse. The air was poisoning them. Numbers that scared Houston back on Earth. Mission Control saw the data. Carbon dioxide levels were climbing, slowly, steadily. Too high, and the brain stops working. Too high, and the heart fails. The lunar module filters were not enough. They were never made for this. 3 men. Many days. One small space. It was a deadly mistake. One. No one planned for. No replacement. There were no extra filters. No. Backup system. No emergency shipment from Earth. Everything they needed was already inside the spacecraft. If a solution was not found soon, the astronauts would fall asleep and never wake up. Time becomes heavy. Mission Control felt pressure like never before. This was not about engines or fuel. This was about air. About breathing. About life itself. Engineers searched through lists of materials on board, boxes, covers, hoses, tape. Simple objects, useless. Or so they seemed. Building life from trash on Earth, engineers began to build something strange. It looked ugly. It looked weak. It looked impossible. But it worked. They connected square filters to round holes using plastic and tape. It was not perfect. It did not need to be. It only needed to save lives. Instructions from Earth. Mission Control sent step by step. Instructions. Slow, clear, careful. Inside the lunar module. The astronauts listened closely. Their hands were shaking not from fear, but from cold. They followed each step. They cut plastic. They sealed gaps. They connected hoses. The spacecraft felt like a workshop or a hospital. The waiting when the device was finished. No one celebrated. They waited. Minutes passed. Then numbers began to change. Carbon dioxide levels stopped rising. Then they dropped. Inside the spacecraft, breathing felt easier. Inside Mission Control, some people cried quietly. The invisible killer was pushed back. For now. But the body remembers. Damage was not gone. The astronauts were weak, dehydrated, cold, mentally exhausted. Simple actions felt heavy. Even talking required effort. But they were alive. And that was enough for now. Quiet fear late in the silence of space. One astronaut floated near the window. Earth was brighter now. Closer. But he knew the truth. Surviving space was not the end. Going back through fire was still. Waiting. Hope was no longer emotional. Hope was now mathematical. A mission that changed meaning. Apollo 13 was not a moon mission anymore. It was a rescue mission. Not a rescue from Earth. A rescue from failure. Inside mission control, people stopped thinking like dreamers. They thought like survivors. Every problem had only two results: live or die. There was no middle. The clock nobody could see, no timer was on the wall, but everyone felt it. The astronauts could survive only a limited number of hours. Oxygen, water, body strength, all were running out. Engineers did not sleep. Coffee cups filled desks. Eyes turned red. Voices became slow. Mistakes were dangerous. Guessing was forbidden. A broken computer. The navigation computer inside the spacecraft was almost useless. Power was too low. Systems were unstable. That meant no automatic correction. Everything had to be done by hand. Manual calculations. Paper, pencils, slide rules. Old tools. New pressure. One burn, one chance. There was a single engine burn that could save the crew. Only one. Too short and the spacecraft would miss Earth. Too long and it would burn up on return. The angle had to be perfect. The timing had to be exact. There would be no test run. Fear of the moon. The moon was now behind them. But its gravity still mattered. If calculations were wrong, the spacecraft could slingshot into deep space forever. No fuel to return. No radio signal. No goodbye. Just silence. Building confidence for numbers engineers. Checked calculations again. And again. And again. Different teams calculated the same burn without talking to each other. Results match. That was the only comfort. Numbers do not care about fear. The instruction call mission control sent the final plan. Clear words. Short sentences. No confusion allowed. Inside the lunar module, the astronauts listened. They repeated instructions. Confirmed steps. No emotion in there. Voices. Emotion wastes time. Burn without seeing. There was another problem. They could not see the stars. Smoke from the explosion still covered the windows. No stars meant no navigation reference. They had to use Earth itself. A blue circle. A moving target. They lined it up by eye. Human eyes. Human judgment. In space. Engine ignition. The moment came. The engine fired. Spacecraft shook. Metal screamed. The astronauts held position. No talking. No movement. Seconds passed. Each second felt like a lifetime. Then engine off. Waiting for judgment. Mission control checked numbers. Silence filled the room. Then one voice broke it. Trajectory looks good. A simple sentence, but it carried life inside. They had not won, but they had not lost. A new kind of funno came anew. Worry. Entry. The heat shield. If it was damaged during the explosion, the spacecraft would burn like paper. There was no way to check. No camera. No sensor. Faith replaced data. End of part 5. Cliffhanger. The spacecraft moved closer to Earth. Hope grew. Fear grew faster. Because the final test would not allow correction. Fire would decide everything. The fire came without warning. Not loud. Not violent. Just unstoppable. The point of no return. The spacecraft was close to Earth now. Very close. So close that there was no way back. No second plan. No extra fuel. No correction. From this point, everything was decided by physics. The astronauts prepared for ray. Entry. Slowly. carefully. Their movements were weak. Their faces were thin. Days without heat, water, and rest had changed them, but their minds stayed sharp. They had to. Leaving the sheet, lifeboat, the lunar module had saved their lives. Now, it had to be abandoned. It was painful to leave it. It had been their shelter, their protector, but it was time to return to the main command module. They powered it up. The systems came alive slowly. Lights blinked. Screens warmed. It felt like waking up an old machine after a long sleep. A final look before separation. One astronaut looked back. The lunar module floated away, small, silent. Hero no one would remember. Then it disappeared. The heat shield question. No one spoke about it, but everyone thought about it. The heat shield. If it was cracked, if it was weak, the spacecraft would burn during re-entry. Not slowly, instantly. There was no alarm for this. No warning. Fire would simply take over. Entering fire, the spacecraft hit Earth's atmosphere at extreme speed. The outside temperature rose to thousands of degrees. Plasma surrounded the capsule. Fire covered everything from the inside. They could feel vibration. Heat. Pressure. Then silence. The blackout begins. Radio contact was lost. This was expected, but not for this long. Normally, the blackout lasted a few minutes. Seconds passed, then more seconds. Then minutes. Mission control stared at their screens. No signal. No voice. No data. Only time. Hurts more than action inside mission control. No one moved. No one spoke. Every person counted time in their head. 1 minute too long. 2 minutes too long. Someone whispered, "It should be back by now." No one answered. Inside, the capsule astronauts could not hear Earth. They could not hear Houston. Only fire. Only shaking. Only heat. They trusted the shield. They trusted the math. They trusted fate. There was nothing else to do. The longest silence. The blackout lasted longer than planned. Much longer. Some people looked away from the screens. Some held their breath, prepared for the worst. This silence was louder than any explosion. A signal breaks through thin sound. A weak signal. A voice. "Okay, Joe." Mission control froze, then exploded with sound. Cheers. Crying. Relief. They were alive. Earth welcomes them back. Parachutes opened, white and red against the blue sky. The capsule fell gently into the ocean. Fire was gone. Silence returned, but this time it was peaceful. End of Part 6. Cliffhanger. They had survived fire. They had survived space. But the world would soon ask a question. Was Apollo 13 a failure? Or the greatest success NASA never planned? Survival does not feel like victory at first. It feels unreal. The water landing, the capsule hit the ocean gently. Not fast. Not hard. Just a quiet splash. After days of noise, alarms, fire, and fear, there was only water. The spacecraft floated. Still. Alive. Inside. The astronauts did not cheer. They did not shout. They just sat there. Breathing. The weight of silence for the first time in many days. No system was failing. No oxygen alarm. No power warning. No emergency voice. That silence felt strange. Their bodies were weak. Their hands shook. Survival had taken everything from them. The hatch opens. Rescue teams arrived quickly. The hatch opened. Fresh air entered the capsule. Real air. Warm air. One by one, the astronauts were helped out. They looked thin. Older. Different. Space had changed them. Earth feels. Heavy gravity returned, and it hurt. Their legs struggled. Their bodies were not ready. After floating for so long, Earth felt heavy. Almost too heavy. But no one complained. Pain meant life. The world watches around the world. People watched the images. The mission that was ignored was now everywhere. News channels replayed the story. Newspapers printed the words. Miracle. Survival. Human courage. Apollo 13 was no longer a mission. It was a symbol. Inside their minds at night, when noise stopped, memories returned. The explosion. The cold. The silence. Survival leaves scars, even when the body is safe. The mind keeps flying. Sometimes one astronaut woke suddenly. Sometimes another stayed quiet for hours. They did not talk much about fear, but it lived inside them. NASA faces the truth inside NASA. Celebration was careful. Yes, the crew was safe, but mistakes were made. An oxygen tank failed. A design flaw existed. This mission forced honesty. Every system was reviewed. Every decision questioned. Failure became a teacher. A mission redefined. Apollo 13 never landed on the moon, but it did something harder. Brought 3 men home against impossible odds. It proved something important. Technology matters. Training matters. But calm thinking matters most. The question remains. People ask the same question again and again. Was Apollo 13 a failure? NASA answered quietly, no. Because failure ends a story. This mission refused to end. Some stories end with success. Some end with failure. Apollo 13 ended with truth. The name that changed meaning for many years. People believed success meant landing on the moon. Flags, footprints, photographs. Apollo 13 did none of that. Yet its name became louder than many missions that did, because Apollo 13 showed something deeper than achievement. It showed survival. 3 men. One lesson: the astronauts returned home quietly. No victory parade. No loud speeches. They did not call themselves heroes. They simply said they did their jobs. But the world knew better. They had trusted each other when fear tried to divide them. They had trusted calm when panic wanted control. They had trusted hope when logic said no. The engineers behind the curtain, many heroes, never went to space. They sat in rooms full of paper, numbers, and doubt. Engineers who did not sleep, who argued with math, who built life-saving ideas from trash and tape. They proved that intelligence is strongest when it works together. No one person saved Apollo 13. Teamwork did. Failure that taught the world. Apollo 13 forced NASA to change. Designs were improved. Safety became stronger. Mistakes were studied, not hidden. Failure was not ignored. It was respected, because ignoring failure repeats it. Learning from failure changes the future. Why? This story still matters today. Machines are smarter. Computers are faster. But Apollo 13 reminds us of something timeless. Technology can break. Plans can fail. But the human mind can adapt. When fear is controlled. When thinking stays clear, impossible becomes possible. A quiet orbit around history. Spacecraft is gone. The mission is over. But Apollo 13 still travels, not in space, but in memory. In every mission plan. In every emergency protocol. In every moment where calm thinking saves lives. The final truth: Apollo 13 never touched the moon, but it touched something greater. Touched the limits of human courage. Pushed past them. Final words. Power ending for audience. Sometimes success is not about reaching your goal. Sometimes success is simply coming back alive. Apollo 13 did not fail. It survived. And in survival, it became immortal.